Senator Moran.
Chairman, thank you very much. Direct this first question to any and all. Can you identify changes in Russian behavior that have occurred since the summit between President Trump and President Putin in Helsinki? Different behavior by Russia than before the summit?
I don't have anything to add. No, sir.
Anyone?
Senator, I would ask that any kind of question like that be addressed in a closed session.
You know, we've had a closed session, and I share the view of the senator from Montana that getting answers in a closed session is no easier than getting answers in an open session. Ms. Mannlicher, your unwillingness to answer the question, one of the things I thought would come from this hearing is a recommendation or a set of recommendations of what Congress might consider legislatively for additional sanctions. I've not reached any conclusion that additional sanctions are beneficial. I don't know the answer to that question, but I would have thought that you could have been able to give us ideas of what we might look at or pursue in cooperation with you and the administration. Am I to take from your unwillingness to answer that kind of question that there is an opposition by the administration to additional sanctions, or what's a better explanation?
Senator, absolutely not. There's no opposition to sanctions. As I've already mentioned, we've designated well over 200 individuals and companies in connection with Russia.
I'm talking about additional sanctions, something that we're looking at in this committee.
Including additional sanctions that we issued just this morning. In terms of what additional authorities we may need, we already have, through CATSA and through a variety of different executive orders, broad authority to target the big sectors of the Russian economy, to go after the Russian oligarchs, to go after Russia's malicious cyber activities. We've been in a number of other areas. In fact, as I've already mentioned, we've targeted not only a number of very significant Russian companies, we've targeted the chairs of those companies, making it much more difficult for them to operate in the world. So we'd be happy to sit down and talk to Congress about any proposed legislation, but we do have significant and substantial authorities already on the books.
And maybe that's the answer to the question, is not what you've been able to do, but the answer to the question, what more do you need, is nothing is known at the moment, but you'll consult with Congress if we come up with an idea, is my takeaway from your testimony. I think I generally agree with Senator Cotton that we ought to be looking at other issues in addition, certainly to sanctions, which is our relationship with NATO, economic alliances around the globe, resolving our trade differences with other countries so that we're unified. I think the list is longer than sanctions. We generally are focused on sanctions in this committee, but I take it from your answer that to date you believe you have the necessary authorities to combat what we're trying to combat with Russian behavior. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, Senator, but we're happy to talk to you about additional authorities. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is a whole-of-government approach. It's not, sanctions alone aren't going to solve the problem. And this administration has undertaken a number of additional activities in connection with the Russian threat.
Thank you very much. The administration, I think this is probably, I don't know who this is for. The administration has called for a complete cutoff of Iranian petroleum imports by November. That seems to me to be just in time for winter. Does it stand to reason that that will push Europe and others to be more dependent upon Russian oil and natural gas? And is there coordination on the sanctions that we're pursuing with Iran and sanctions that we have in place with Russia or proposing with Russia?
Absolutely, Senator. There's extensive interagency coordination on those sanctions with the State Department, with the Department of Energy, and of course with our closest allies and partners.
Mr. Krebs, your testimony, you note leadership role that the department plays in conducting elections, coordinating efforts to assess vulnerabilities and mitigate risk. Within this structure, DHS also plays an important role in sharing information with election officials. I've visited with county clerks, county election officers in Kansas, with personnel within our Secretary of State's office that conducts oversight on and management of elections in our state. What steps has DHS taken to ensure that information and intelligence is shared with local officials? My general impression is that while there's concern by election officials, they don't know the direct nature of any threat.
So we have prioritized security clearances for state and local election officials. I think right now we're up to about 92, and that includes every single state. But most importantly,
Is an election official somebody at the state level or somebody at
we've
the local level?
started, yes, sir, at the Secretary of State or chief election official in each state, and are working our way down to the county level. Now, I don't think we're going to get to the county level in terms of specific clearances, because our imperative here is to bring information out of the classified space as rapidly as possible and share actionable information so doesn't matter what county or locality they're in, that they have information from DHS that's pulled generally from the intelligence community that they can act on. And our mission is to shorten that time period. So we are working on clearances, but more importantly, we're trying to convene information sharing fora. I mentioned the ISAC. We have all 50 states and pushing 1,000 local jurisdictions. The challenge here is that there are close to 10,000 election jurisdictions nationwide. So while we have probably the fastest growing, most successful ISAC, we still have a pretty big gap to fill. And so we're working through what's known, was mentioned by Senator Warner earlier, the last mile. We have our own last mile initiative where we are developing tailored guidance to every single county if they would like it across this country. And that will include how to sign up for the ISAC, how to participate in incident response and tabletop exercise.
What's the time frame for that to be available?
We are marketing this aggressively now. We've already gotten 4 through the chute. We have 4 states. We have 22 more states in the works right now. We have the capacity by the midterm, if every single state asks for a last mile, and it's a poster that we can share with you, and we'll share tomorrow at the closed session. It's an unclassified document. We can do all 50 states if asked by the midterm.
Thank you.